too close to the edge now.
All right, here we go. It's episode 82. And this is with the Unknown Project. These boys from New York, you probably know. If you don't, check them out. Everything's in the description, of course. And we have not the whole crew today, but we have Joseph Rizzo, Laine Cammarata, Vincent Vinciguerra, and Jake Migliorato. Jesus Christ. Very Italian names. I was doing a little workout, so I'm out of breath. And you guys have seen probably their work recently with Ampisound. They put out some really big and cool projects, so I'll put those in the description as well. And basically in this episode, all we're doing is talking about, you guessed it, some parkour and what's happening in the world, why they are being challenged and what they want to bring out from the New York scene and what that means and what they want it to reflect, not just for their local community, but for the American community, which we talk about kind of how that compares with other, influential communities like the UK community and some other spots around the world, and the kind of the direction that parkour is going broadly and how it compares to other sports like skateboarding. We get into, touch on some fig stuff. And we even at the end of the podcast, we get real deep and we talk about the meaning of life. So I hope you guys dig this one. And here they are, the Unknown Project. I don't actually have questions for you guys. I just wanted to hang out and talk.
Hell yeah.
That works.
Yeah, that's what
That's our fucking style. Yeah.
Bro, we're friends. We're friends first, bro. We're friends first.
Well, yeah. How do you guys all like, I mean, that's the obvious question, but you might as well get into it, is like, what happened that made the Unknown Project begin? Because I saw, that was the other thing that surprised me, is I didn't realize how long you guys have been around. And 2014 is what I saw.
Yeah. We've been around for like 4 or 5 years. So it's it. So kind of how, like, I guess we all got started was actually take it way back actually to the first beginning. So originally how parkour kind of got started in Staten Island, like generally, was like maybe like 4 or 5 people. So one was Nick Ortiz. Another one was actually my brother, Anthony Rizzo. Another person named Joe D'Alessio and John Berman. They were all kind of high school friends. And then they saw it online kind of one day, and they just, same as anyone, like you get excited about seeing parkour online and then you kind of just go huck your body at shit, and kind of figure it all out. But I think for me and Jake specifically, we got started like very, very early, kind of connecting with like Nick and my brother and all like the friends and whatnot. I actually met Jake at a birthday party that I had at Aviator Gym in Brooklyn. Jake, if you remember. Oh, yeah. And we just kind of got to talking. We found out that we both lived on Staten Island. We started training around a little bit, and I think Jake came up with the idea to kind of have a collective of everyone on Staten Island, because the community in Staten Island isn't that big. Like the 9 people, or like 6 of us now that are actually together, are the only people really training on Staten Island. There is no community. And we're like a 2-hour ferry ride and train ride from the city. So we were very, very distant from that kind of small community as well. So we just kind of had the idea to get everyone that trained on Staten Island together, just to kind of like fuck around and train. And then it developed into what we are now, and kind of been pushing it forward since then. The way that Vinny got involved, because he actually lives on Long Island, not Staten Island. Same thing with like David Ehrlich, if you know who David is. We had been like a team for about maybe 2 or 3 years. And we had known David very well, training back and forth with him. And then Vinny came back from the military. And we just started all training together. And then same thing. We got really, really close, very, very tight knit, and kind of built us up to what we are today.
I mean, Staten Island's got to play like the biggest, like it's like its own character in the, that's what I feel like anyway.
It's garbage.
Like part of the Unknown like project. That is like one of the team members is the island. It feels like almost.
Yeah, I would say.
I mean, the way, because obviously Nick and I are pretty close, and he talks about it, and like I've started to like learn about the history. I'm dumb as fuck when it comes to that. I think that like, you know, I didn't know that Wu-Tang was from there. I didn't like, I just, I'm very into hip hop. I didn't know like the whole history of it. So like, does anyone want to like talk about like, okay, what does it like mean really? Cause Staten Island is like super unique, and I think it plays a really big role.
Yeah. I mean, a big portion behind even like the name, the Unknown Project, came from when, I remember we were working with somebody in like Colorado, and at the time we were already a team. We already went by the Unknown Project, and when we told them where we were from, we said, "Yeah, we're from Staten Island," and they just kind of looked at us and they were like, where is that? Like, I've never heard of that before, and I forgot. I'm like, no, nobody knows really Staten Island. They know it as just New York. So when we kind of like took a step back and we figured out, we're like, yeah, no, the island is completely unknown to a lot of people. And seeing as we're trying to be the ones to really make a name for ourselves here first, and then kind of like bring it out, the idea of the Unknown Project kind of made more sense to us, because we're like, yeah, it doesn't really matter where you're from. It doesn't really matter like, if you're known or not. Like you can like have an impact. You can make a change, and it was pretty cool. That's kind of like been the drive that we've had since.
Yeah.
A little.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, a little fun fact about Staten Island. It's actually a borough of New York, if you didn't know. And we're literally referred to as the Forgotten Borough.
Long Island more of a borough than Staten Island, honestly.
Well, Long Island is a part of Queens. So technically you're just Queens. You're literally just Queens, elongated.
I'm wannabe Queens. I'm white trash Queens. That's where I live.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been fascinating. It's like a lot of, I mean, obviously the Wu-Tang thing was a huge piece of culture that comes out of there. I don't know how it influences your style, other than like the fact that you feel extra isolated, extra unknown, extra like forgotten. Yeah. So that's like super interesting, because I mean, in a place where you already maybe get washed out because New York is such, you know, a big chaotic melting pot. For one area to like really not even, you know, blip on the radar as much, like can be maybe amplifying that effect that you probably already feel if you live anywhere in New York. I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting too with specific like training spots. So in Colorado, there's very much kind of like in betweens. So that's what we kind of call it, because in Staten Island, the spots literally in general, there are very, very small technical things that you can kind of train, right? And then there's just power stuff, like very big power stuff. There's no that middle ground, that kind of in between. So we've had to like kind of like be creative and kind of work very, very hard to like, I guess, be at the range that we are.
Well, I love how that influences your style wherever you're from. That's like one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Like how you actually represent. Do you guys feel like you represent, you know, the island in the way that you want to already? Or are you still going for that kind of ownership before you move on to bigger? I mean, obviously you're doing big projects already, you know, with Ampisound. And we'll get into that, but I'm just curious, like, how do you feel like you are now, like with the solid, like, what do you feel like is happening with that? And just like, all right, we're bringing Staten Island. Like, what do you bring from Staten Island to the world?
I think we're doing a pretty okay job of creating like that kind of image, because as we talked just before, like a forgotten borough, like it's not really like known widely. And for us to kind of push the idea of like the Unknown Project, like you don't really have to be known to kind of push your way forward. I think that really kind of like encapsulates us.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I like it. I dig it.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to represent New York like as a whole rather than like a borough, honestly. Like I think it'd just be cool to be like, oh, those are the New York kids. Like that's always like tickled me a weird way.
I think that's actually what we're kind of pushing towards now. We're kind of getting out of like the small realm of Staten Island because of like the projects that we've been doing at Ampisound and whatnot, and the production value has just kind of gone up. That I think that we're very much being known as like, oh, those boys from New York, rather than like, oh, those boys from Staten Island. So that's pretty cool. Because we're kind of representing like a higher thing with ourselves.
Yeah. And then that'll bring attention probably to, you know, as the road keeps going, do you see yourself kind of representing the United States in a different way?
I hope so.
Parkour?
Yeah, I would say so. Because if you really look at what is going on in the United States, there's not much going on in the United States compared to like the UK scene. You know, they're doing like a whole lot. And yes, like parts here and there are kind of picking up in the United States, but there's no like, I guess like big projects being like very pushed forward. So yeah, maybe someday. Hopefully.
Pushing the scene, but there's like a lack of East Coast presence, it seems. Like disregarding Washington's got a pretty good community, but like I feel like there's no one really doing what we're doing in New York.
No, I mean, it doesn't feel like that. Really, no one's really doing what you guys are doing. And I mean, hardly. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like there's much of what you guys are doing. You know, I mean, everyone's doing it differently, but there's so few teams that are really like being pretty active and like really trying to push it and like that are good friends. You know, that really true.
Yeah.
There's obviously the LA Tempest guys. They're really like, you know, amazing and I love everything they're doing. There's lots of good communities, but there's few teams that are kind of like trying to be kind of that team vibe that's still a little bit, you know, it just doesn't exist. Like no one's really kind of made it work for them in the United States so well.
Yeah. Actually, I've been talking to
go ahead, sorry.
No, you're good. I'm sorry. I was actually talking to like a bunch of people kind of about that kind of topic lately, because I think it's very, not that it's like easy per se, because everyone has their struggles here and there, but to kind of push yourself as a single athlete, you know what I mean? Like, you know, kind of pushing yourself forward. I think it's very easy for people in the parkour community to kind of break through very quickly. But the longevity of it kind of trails off a little bit because it's very hard to consistently make big projects as a regular person. But I think it's harder for a team to kind of break through because there's so many personalities, because there's so much to like attach yourself to. But the longevity of it is better because once people start to attach, they find like themselves in that team and they can really start to connect with it. And I think that kind of drives way further than like single athletes.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Mm-hmm. Really? Yeah, I heard it from somebody recently. It was, I think what is nice about what we're doing as far as a team, like you said, you don't really see people or you don't really see teams nowadays that are, you know, more friends before anything else. Yeah. It wasn't like we just kind of made the team and we were complete strangers. We were friends first and then just kind of like slapped a logo on it and said, hey, this is us now. This is the Unknown Project. But we had like these years and years of like connection and relation before we ever really became anything. And I definitely think that shows when people see us in public or we go out to gatherings or events or even like our videos, you see that friendship first pretty much before anything. And I really enjoy that connection that people can have to us because it doesn't really seem, you know, we're not trying to ever be intimidating. We don't want to be like that. We want to feel welcoming to people, like to kind of show people like, hey, you know, just go out with a bunch of friends, go move around. And that's what we did. And look what we're doing now. And it's pretty cool.
We bring some crazy energy.
Yeah, no, totally. No, I mean, I mean, I think you guys are right on the money. Like, I think that's such a huge part of what people don't realize, what makes someone like a store team successful, or even Tempest, or, you know, even though like I kind of paint them in a different way because they are more of like a amalgamation of different athletes coming together. And obviously it's tied up with the whole entertainment industry because of, you know, that's what makes them who they are. But any team that has longevity, it's because there's real friendships, real bonds, real things like that hold it together that are bigger than and deeper than, you know, what you are ever going to see on the surface, you know? And I think you guys are totally right. I think that's like really interesting that it's like, it's a huge part of the longevity. Mm-hmm. And not just because that's what people can connect to, but it's just, it doesn't work unless there's a real camaraderie, I think sometimes, you know, It just has to kind of, because it allows you guys to be yourselves on camera and like have fun. And like, we all want to see those weird sides of you, but it's not a good look for somebody when they're trying to be that weird side of themselves, you know, sometimes, or it's just, I don't know. I just think like you draw it out of each other, but you can also keep each other kind of in check. And that shit is, that's what a lot of people are really, especially like right now, with the isolation going on, people are really yearning for some kind of connection, and before the pandemic, that's a huge thing already. It's just people don't have that sense of camaraderie as much as they used to. But I don't know.
No, I completely agree. It kind of goes back to like the athlete versus team kind of thing, because you can have one person that tries to push and push and push, but after a while, like you could push too hard and you could be forcing yourself to kind of make this stuff that are you really like into or like happy with or even having fun with, you know what I mean? Like when we go out to film a video, whether it be like a big project or like a small project or a POV, whatever, like we're literally going out having fun training all together, kind of like feeding off one another, screwing around with each other, just blatantly having fun. And I think that's where like the real like production comes in afterwards, because once we have that fun, we get into a very good state or vibe, and then we just kind of click and click and click. We're all like reading each other. We know exactly what to do, where to stand, where to be. I feel like that could be very hard with someone trying to push themselves forward by themselves,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well.
What are you guys going next with? I mean, you had these two big projects come out with Ampisound in New York, and then another one most recently in Texas that came out like today or something, or
2 days ago or a day ago.
A couple of days ago, yeah. Mm-hmm. How do those do? And like, what is that, guys? What is that? How has that shifted your journey? Like, where you're headed next?
Right now it's a little up in the air because of everything kind of going on right now. Mm-hmm. We did have the plan to compete again, most of us, and head to like the qualifiers for NAPC and then Vancouver. I think we kind of talked about maybe some like small road trips here and there. But our big project was in January when we filmed Texas. And again, just because of everything kind of going on right now, we really don't know.
France also, dude.
That is true. Yeah. So actually,
talk about France. What's going on with France?
Me, Vinny, Laine, and David actually planned like a small trip, like 7 or 8 days, to go to France, go to Leeds, and then come down to Amsterdam for what's the jam? Oh my God,
Hop the Block.
Hop the Block. Yeah. So the plan was to kind of go film what we can, if we can get like a project going while we're there, maybe shoot another POV. That would be cool. But again, because of everything, it's just a little weird. We're kind of on like a waiting period to kind of see what happens.
Yeah. We don't know if our flights are getting canceled yet for those who have purchased the tickets.
Yeah.
You never know, but you should be able to get a good refund at least at this time.
Yes. Very true.
Or like not, you apply it to another ticket. No problem.
Yeah. Something like points.
So another question I guess I have, because like I think this is important, and Phil, I don't know if you guys listened to the Modus podcast, most recent episode with Phil, or if you listen to other parkour kind of podcast episodes, but something that I thought that Phil really drew attention to, which I really agree with, is like, and it's something you guys obviously have, but like, what do you guys find that ties you together that's not parkour? Like that's not the training, that's not the movement. If it wasn't
Super
there.
Smash Brothers.
Yeah, I was literally about to say Smash. Like we all go super hard. Like we literally have like hangouts where all we do for hours is play Smash. Like that's been a very, very big thing with us.
Oh, word.
Yeah, ever since the beginning, honestly.
And you guys are all about the same age?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Early 20s. Yeah.
Ooh, prime time, baby.
I'm the oldest on the team.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Gift from Zoom. That's the 40-minute lit. We get them. That's what I'm talking about, dude. See, we don't have to buy $15 Zoom.
There it is.
Actually, thanks, Zoom. We appreciate that, Shout out Zoom, right?
Yeah. Shout out
winners.
Hell yeah. Shout out Zoom.
I don't have to cut this thing short at all, or
that's good. Hell yeah.
But
hey man.
Yeah.
Anything else? So you get the Smash. You guys are at the same age. You guys have all like, not everyone's from Staten Island though, right?
No. So me, Laine, Jake are from Staten Island. Vinny, David is from Long Island. Also, we have Chris Picarello and Jesse Delaberti, who are also from Staten Island. So it's us like main 5 from Staten Island. And then David and Vinny are from Long Island.
Yeah, I grew up training with Max Henry. I know you know Max pretty well.
Yeah.
But I started training with him in the Long Island community probably over 10 years ago now when I was like 13.
He's such a pillar. Yeah, like, I mean, it's so funny.
Oh,
Like, think about, we stole those guys. We stole Nick, and we
you
stole.
guys did. You guys had thieves.
Back, but we stole Max permanently for all intents and purposes. Although I don't
Nick
know.
actually came back this year.
Yeah, I know you got him back.
Christine stole Max. How dare you?
Yeah, Christine. Shout out Christine for taking Max and pinning him down to us here in Colorado. He's such a legend. What do you guys think when it comes to that? Like, who do you look to, or do you kind of feel like because I think there's a time when you have mentors like Max and Nick that obviously had influence on your guys' training, and then you kind of become your own mentors in this group. Is there other people that you still look to, or how do you guys push yourself to be, I'm assuming, correct me again, if I'm wrong, let me know. But here's how I see it. If you really want to be making waves, if you want to be becoming known without being known, and being, getting attention, you have to be giving something. So that usually means like you're giving something the world hasn't seen before, or is not seen like the way you guys are doing it. And obviously every one of you are unique. But one of the things that you got to do is you got to kind of like have interesting movement to the table. Like, how do you stay pushing yourself? Do you guys set movement goals? What kinds of things do you do that draw out like that next level of you?
You guys just want to kind of go in order?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
One by one.
Does that mean I'm first?
Go for it, Vin.
No. Please, I cut you off, Joseph.
So polite.
Well, I guess in my own training, what I do, and this is what I've always done from like since I've always started to train, I have like a parkour list in my phone. And it's of all the spots on the island, things that I've either tried, have accomplished, or have set out to do. And that just kind of like given towards a spot, or things that I've seen other people do that I guess I try to go a little further with to test myself, because I know that thing is already possible. So for me personally, it's just like kind of like a parkour list. I look up consistently, kind of keep my head fresh to the challenges, and then just check them off as I go.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, we have very different answers. Jake, your turn.
Going back on what you were saying about how like in the beginning, you have mentors and stuff, and without, and I always say like without like meeting Nick and training with Nick for the amount of years that I did in the beginning, I don't think any of us really would have met at the time that we did. I'm sure it would have happened at some point, but all of this may not have gone the way that it has been. So like Max and Nick definitely like are two of those people that I know I definitely looked up to and still look up to now. Mm-hmm. And as we've like been training together, and after like all the years of training, I know like I look up to every single person on the team now. I kind of like watch I watch everybody's movement, everybody's videos, the content they're putting out. And I'm still learning through the people on the team, which I always thought was kind of cool. Because even though I know them for years, I'm still learning stuff that they don't even know that they're teaching me. And it's always something nice to watch, because I base a lot of my movement off of every single person on the team. I'll see certain things that they do, and I try to incorporate in my own training. And it's a way that I kind of keep my movement fresh and my mentality with training fresh as well, because I have, at this point, 6 people to go off of. So there's always something new to learn that I know either I can't do or something that I'm willing to try and do.
That's true. I think I misunderstood the question a little bit. That's very, very much kind of like the dynamic. No, completely. It's very, very much.
No, completely.
Yeah, you just gotta jump on his coach.
No. I thought you were talking like specific like process of what you do, but no, that's definitely like
I kept it nice and vague just to fuck with everyone.
No, it's very true. No, it's definitely
just to let you like rattle off.
Definitely a big step. Everyone else has like their share and what we kind of build off of one another, especially with the team.
Well, before we get to that, actually, I want to know whose like skills are best like sharpened against each other persons. But let's keep going down the line.
You want to go versus each other? Oh,
Versus.
Oh my god, that's hard.
You know, if you guys are the Voltron robots or whatever, like I actually don't know Voltron lore, but if you're the fuck, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know many, but like Avengers, like if you're like the, you know, who's like the Hulk, like what are your superpowers? You know, that's what I want to know on the next.
Oh, okay, yeah, I understand that. Are we gonna go into that, or are we still sticking with the?
I'm getting ahead of us. Sorry.
okay.
Oh, okay. So it's my turn, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Laine. I'll be last, Laine.
Sorry. So I would say for me, it's kind of what the guys were just saying. I kind of try to learn from everybody, honestly. Like especially my teammates. I think like I have some of the best competition around. You know, so I try to like put myself up against them, and not even like in a super competitive way, just to better myself. I see things they do, and like how Jake said, I'll try to incorporate into my stuff. Where I'll just see something that catches my eye, and I'm like, ooh, I want to try that. So I just try to, you know, learn it real quick. But yeah, I would say like I try to better myself at any encounter. Like even if I train like with you, where I train with Nick, where I train with like the Riot guys on Philly, or anything like that, I try to just see what they're doing and try to either do the same thing, you know, like try to learn the same movement and or just like see where my power is and whatnot. So it helps me just push myself mentally and sometimes physically, which is cool.
Healthy competition.
Yeah, healthy competition. Yeah.
Important.
Healthy competition. Wow, Laine, that was so beautifully said.
I doubt that.
I can't say
that.
No, it did. It was, dude. Like all of you said it at the end of the day. Like a lot of my progression or like a lot of our movements are based off of one another, and that's the cool thing. Is like the way we synergize with the movement is also like evolved. It's going to be a little bit of a outlier answer, but like definitely with psychedelics, like definitely like every time I've trained after doing a psychedelic, like I've progressed or like I've been doing new styles of movement after that, which was like a reworking of the brain, and that's really like helped my training the past few years.
Oh wow, really? How is it? Can you go a little more into that actually, since we're on you?
Yeah. I mean, no problem. I mean,
what's the training and what does it open up? Or
when I was microdosing on psilocybin, that's like the first time I felt it. Like I was getting way more. It was way easier to visualize like doing jumps or doing movements before they actually happened, and it felt as if like a key was being put into a lock and unlocked. I was like, wow, that's a very surreal feeling to be feeling on a tenth of a gram on psilocybin. But like after like any type of dosage, like I've done DMT and LSD as well. And after one of those experiences, I've always come back the next day like, oh, I want to train. Like I know what my passion is. I want to train. And then I just learned palm flips. I would be working on flips, landing better. My perception and control would just go through the following day or like the following weeks. It just carries over well, I feel.
Do you guys all notice that? Comes after his LSD trip and he's like just flowing harder. He was like, damn, I want some of that. What's going on?
Well, no, I mean,
just kidding. I got a disclaimer. I don't know who's listening and all that. My position is sometimes it works for people. Sometimes it works against them. I'm not going to fucking way, but
no recommendations. I'm just saying this works for me, my personal movement and how I've evolved. Definitely heavily influenced by psychedelics.
Obviously, you know, learn yourself and get responsible. But I'm curious, like, if you guys actually noticed it too, or if anyone else on the team.
I don't know if they picked up on it. I went out training with them after a shroom trip once, and I felt that's when I did that tree lash over in Staten Island. I was like, oh, that's easy.
Oh, I remember when you did that. Oh, okay. So the only thing that I've actually like ever really learned from psychedelics, I've done shrooms a couple times. And for me specifically, like I deal with like a lot of anxiety. Like I have very bad generalized anxiety. So what happened was actually during like the second time I did mushrooms, I actually kind of got like a better understanding of anxiety. And I don't really know how to like explain it all too much of what kind of happened in that trip. But after I came out of it, I was very much in a different place with my anxiety and I was able to manage it better. And because of that, my training got better. I wasn't second guessing as much. I was kind of had full faith in my ability that I know that I could do this because everything before that it was literally just the anxiety factor. Like I would think of a challenge, try to approach it, just get way too stressed out, think way too much. And I guess, I don't know, because whatever happened when it happened.
What perspective did it give you? Like, did it give you just a different look at what your anxiety was? Like
it helped me learn to accept it a little bit, you know, and to kind of think that, no, like you do deal with a lot at once, being like having anxiety, but anxiety can be now looked at in two different kind of lights. There's bad anxiety that makes you panic, right? But then there's good anxiety that everyone feels every single day, but they're able to kind of manage it, where people with like that, people that are diagnosed with like generalized anxiety or kind of depression, they have like a harder time understanding it and dealing with it. So I think when I came out of it, I learned to accept it a little more. I learned to like kind of admit to myself that no, like I'm not the only person that deals with all this stuff. And there is like a very healthy way to deal with it. And that's through like physical output, working out, exercising, doing whatever. And if that makes you feel good, then there's no reason not to accept it as good anxiety and let it push you forward. You know what I mean? Positively.
Oh, that's amazing.
It seems to like rewire your brain. It like rewires your brain and gives you a different perspective and like perception of things in this reality. And like, that's the biggest takeaway is like, you could literally like, it's interesting that you're able to look at your anxiety in that new light, like after an experience. And like, good on Colorado too, also for medicinal psilocybin. Good on, that's like a leap right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's, cause we're all doing it in the dark basically, you know, like, we know now that it's like there's clinical trials and there's things that, you know, are coming out now that show that especially under some kind of supervision and the right dosage and all that, it can be really helpful for people dealing with all kinds of different mental, empowerment kind of things, like taking anxiety and making it work for you, etc. But,
I've talked to a couple of people about like how like they start to microdose and their anxiety has filtered better. So.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, I wish I was like smart enough to really talk about it intelligently, because I find it super fascinating that like you can get a different look. And I think ultimately that's what parkour is kind of about, you know, in some ways for a lot of us. I don't know if you guys are the same way, but it's like, it's just about getting that different perspective. You know, you can, and once you realize that you can get that different perspective, that's what can be a little bit addicting about it, and in a healthy way, because it's, you know, it's requiring you to be on point to do it properly in advance. But just being able to realize that like, oh, I used to think this was incredibly terrifying, and now I know that it's completely within my abilities in a way that it doesn't almost make sense, you know.
That's so true.
That teaches you just, you know, the same as any kind of trip would take you on. It's just it's all in your head, really.
No, that's very, very true. Actually, what I was thinking about when you were kind of saying that was after I had done kind of that trip, a month later, me and Laine went to Colorado. That's when we kind of saw you during that time. And we started training heights like we've never ever done before, because where we live, like there's no heights training at all, like very, very little small like roof gaps, but like nothing ever. And in New York too, it's very, very hard to find like very high, high risk is kind of like a,
everything's high risk there. It's such a fucking drag.
But because I don't know, after the trip, I really started to kind of feel that connectedness and like intuitiveness of like heights, because that's where it's most real and that's where you should focus the most, right? So when me and Laine went and we were doing descents and cat drops like crazy almost every single day, just training and repping and filming, I really felt like that trip like helped me to accept the anxiety and help me push past the heights training, because we did some scary stuff. It was fun. It was a little too much, a little too much.
You know, that can happen. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing is like, you know, being your guys' age at one time in my life and now being significantly older, I would say.
Oh, shut up. Significantly. You're like in your young 30s. Take it easy.
Yeah. Well, how old are you?
I'm 24. You're still young. Buddy. You're still
I am still young. Yo, I'm the youngest one here. Okay, I'm in this Zoom room right now because I know what it really means to be young. All right, so I can get young when I need to. But I'm just kidding. But ultimately, I do think that like there is certain amounts of just like there's a higher level of consciousness, I think, coming through like each generation. And I think you guys probably are like more intelligent than I was at 24. But also that 24-year-old man brain is, as far as I know, from my anecdotal experience, is just still very like willing to take on more risk. And it's not necessarily unsafe. It's just that I realized that as I got older, I'm just not interested. Maybe it's because I already did a bunch of it. And so I got it kind of like out of my system. Maybe it's because your prefrontal cortex, they say, doesn't finish forming and all that shit until your mid 20s to late 20s. And maybe it's just following passions. Like we don't really know, but I will say that like, there's something about looking back at the kinds of things I was doing and willing to do. And just, and this is, you could look back at any point in your life and think this though, but it's just like,
I've had jumps like that though, like jumps I did when I was 14 and I'm looking at it 24. I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? Like, or like any descent I've done.
Yeah. You know how sendy it was or wasn't based on what you know now when you learn more. And that's like what gets, I think what can really, that's why I feel older, is because I'm just like, oh, I just understand way more deeply now. I'm more aware of risks that I never even thought about back in the day.
Yeah,
true. I think with social media being like very
something you acquire with years.
I
would say again, like you guys are further along than I was at 24, and I would expect you to be further along than I am here at 31 when you get here, because you guys are killing it. So
fingers crossed.
Keep doing what you're doing. You guys are awesome.
Hell yeah, we try.
Someone was about to say something.
Oh, I was about to say, going on like with the topic of age, I think social media plays like a very, very big part in that, because as things are like being posted, as things are being shared, it kind of broadens the range of what is actually possible now compared to what people were doing way back in the day, compared to what people are doing now, because we have this now big, huge vault of like videos that you can kind of go now and see what people were doing in the day and be like, oh, okay, that's possible, right? So what's the next thing? You know what I mean? Or not even in that, like we know what can be possible. Now, what can I do to kind of show it?
Yeah.
I think that just grows more and more as social media is being like such a big thing now.
Totally. Yeah. No, it's like, I know this, I mean, there's like the whole collective conscious, unconscious kind of theory, that the 100 ape or the 100 chimp theory or whatever, like once 100 chimps on this island, one of them figured out how to crack a coconut, and then chimps on the other side of the island could do it. I don't know if you guys know that story, but it's just strange to me. Like there's so much descent work going down, and there's so much of it online now. And then randomly I saw like this emergency video where some guy was doing descents. Like he wasn't a parkour athlete, but he was doing like the tech. Like I'm just like, he just
really
somehow, and he was trying to rescue some child from some burning building.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah. He does.
I think he was athletic and all this other stuff, but like I feel like he like understood the tech because of what people in parkour have explored for like, I don't know if that's real. I don't know if it is or not, but if it is, that they definitely like did some of the work that allowed that guy to kind of safely navigate that situation.
Absolutely. That's so interesting.
I think that went down in France, didn't it? That homeboy, like, yeah, dude. They celebrated him. That was wild when that went down. I mean, everyone in France, I feel like you mentioned parkour. They're like, oh yeah, like that rings a fucking bell.
Yeah, because he's in France, so he's probably seeing shitloads of his whole upbringing.
Yeah, I'm sure like a few people, more than in America, I've heard of David Bell or seen a parkour video in France as opposed to like the US.
Yeah, I would wonder too, actually. I've not visited.
I would wonder this number.
You guys are going back there. You guys going to visit the Dôme de l'Arc and all the...
Dude, I want to.
The plan was...
It's like a pilgrimage mission.
Exactly.
The plan was to go to Leeds, so...
Oh, cool.
That was the plan. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
What does that mean for you guys to go to the origin of our discipline, or whatever you call it?
The motherland, dude. Yeah. I feel like you could learn so much there. Like, just like, I don't know, there's something that trips me out about like going up to a wall and touching it and be like, how many other athletes had their hands here at one point? Like, there's an energy to spots, and I feel like every spot there is going to have like this weird just history to it, this weird feeling and vibe. That's what I'm stoked about. I can't wait to go.
Yeah.
I'm just excited for new spots, honestly. That's what I'm excited.
Same.
Yeah.
New spots, new opportunities,
New spots,
more challenges. Yeah.
More stuff.
Yeah.
I'll be the cliche one here and give you really dramatized romantic answers.
We love to jump, you know?
Yeah, just
Well, that's another thing. Like, I've actually not visited it. And I used to have there's always a balance to strike there too, I think, with paying respect to what came before you and the people that really pioneered and blazed the trail, and then taking it in a different direction.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that go to it's not like, you see some people throwing down some big lines and stuff there now, but it's weird. Like, it doesn't, in my mind, it's not even like I wouldn't go there to like train, I guess. Like, for me, I would just be like, interested into like learning about why the movements were shaped by that architecture. But I would go there.
I feel that.
I would probably, and my brain would take over, and I'd probably try to do something that was like unique or interesting there. But
Manpower.
Well, also it would be cool to see like.
Oh yeah, dude, you gotta go to Manpower.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
That's what we think.
Oh yeah. Could be done.
I mean, I can't have a height drop podcast and not go to Manpower. Just take a huge height.
That's fair.
You've done it?
No, I've never been to France, and I've never seen all those historical sites.
He's never done it, but he's set himself up to do it. Height drop.
I would never go to Manpower. If I go to France, you better believe I'm going to get in good shape, because I do not want to go there and not be able to do the jump.
I feel that.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That. We're all lifting, being like, I just want to be strong enough to just take a meaty 14-foot drop. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it does, like, it's weird. That's one of the few challenges. I don't like to replicate challenges most of the time. I'm just not interested in it. If somebody does something, I'm like, awesome, they did that. And usually I'm more interested in just trying to do something else. But that one, I would feel really stoked to do.
Yeah.
Well, there are. How many like iconic parkour movements or challenges really get named? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like they're so iconic.
Who can we name them? We got Manhood. We got IMAX. We got. That's it.
And then it falls off right after IMAX. After IMAX, and fuck.
That's it. You got like two.
You know what?
you
Country, and you
don't even have Vauxhall anymore, bro.
Vauxhall, R.I.P.
Vauxhall.
Rest in peace. Never be able to.
Oh, listen. There are blueprints, and we will make them way down the line.
Oh my god!
It's set.
First, you heard it here first. Hold us to our word.
People come to Colorado to do the descent here because it's kind of like his parkour history for descents. The one in Cherokee,
it is.
One in Boulder.
Yeah, Cherokee or White Rails too. That's like White Rails. It's not. It's a
Whole Foods.
It's a
Whole Foods descent.
Yeah, that one's super gnarly.
That one is gnarly.
The one that like really frustrates me is the jump that Callum did in Japan, Tokyo, where the hell it was. That's not named. I feel like that should be named.
Across the apartment gaps.
Yeah, I really feel like that is an iconic thing. It should be named.
We call it Gap. Callum's Gap or Callum's Jump. We can name it right.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, you're totally right. I'm with you on that one. When that came out, like, it's just crazy the amount of saturation that is just existing, not just within parkour, but everywhere. Because, I remember when I saw that, I was like, that is so fucking legendary, somebody to step to a level pre that big at height like that.
And front out.
Yeah.
So I really think like it was just, I was like, why would you not? Like you had the opportunity. Come on.
He still does.
I mean, they probably do. Who knows? We don't.
That's
know.
True. That's true. We don't know.
It doesn't become much until you actually like train at like more people have to show up before it's a spot.
True.
It wasn't the whole until two people did it. Before that, it was just like a crazy descent that somebody did, and then somebody did it, and now it's like, all right, now it's a thing.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I would feel, especially going based off like what you just said with that, like more people would have to do it. I think it holds more of like a prestigious like place that only one person has done it, and like everybody on that team and everybody who's watching it knows full well that he was able to do that. I think by naming it and like bringing more attention to it may dilute it, because then people would want to go there and people would want to do that.
That's very
and then
true.
it becomes more of this I guess like competitive scene where it's like, oh look, I can do this as well. When it comes to like all the descents and the jumps that people have done, there's never that competitive nature because the way people train and stuff. But like you saw his progress and his step-by-step going through that jump, and everybody knew like he was able to do this. This is what he trains for.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they have a name for it. And I mean, but I feel like not naming it keeps it at that like very high level of like, that was fucking nuts.
The unnameable. That's what they call it.
Unnameable.
One day.
Yo, yeah. No, it's, I mean, and to be fair, it's like, you know, him doing it, like every gap like that is done by that first person that we talked about it millions of times on the podcast, but it's just like when you pushed it through that barrier, like that wasn't just that gap. It was like all gaps of that type, you know. That's like anyone who does a full speed running pre, especially a level pre at height, they owe Callum a little bit of juice because he pushed through that barrier for everyone. But it's not even like what, you know, what's fascinating about it is that it just becomes like so washed out eventually. It seems like, you know, we're talking about it now, which is great. Cause I remember that I was like, damn, that is the most fucked up jump anyone's ever done. You know,
yeah, I agree
that day for sure. And, but you know, Callum, you know, he's still training, he's still pushing himself. He's not interested in doing that kind of stuff. And so it's just like, it kind of, you go, oh yeah, well, and then eventually, you know, when Kai did the IMAX Kong pre, the day in 2012 or whatever, that was the best Kong pre that's ever been done. You know, it was the most intense Kong pre probably anyone had ever seen.
Yeah. Now people are just repping it.
You know, people are repping it, and it just sticks, and it doesn't lose anything necessarily, but that's what's so crazy about that barrier breaking is like it's so gnarly until somebody does it, and then now all of a sudden, you know, if people went up to Tokyo, you know, if there's like, you know, 100 of the world's best jumpers up there, parkour jumpers, especially if they were all there, you know, a shitload of people would throw that because
that's true.
Off each other.
After they see the first one send it too, you'll just follow that chain reaction energy. You're like, all right, fuck it, I'll do it too.
The magic trail. Follow the magic trail.
All the magic trail is out. Yeah. It just leaves like a wisp of like hot energy that like it's just that keeps the portal open, you know. But that's interesting. Like that brings me to a kind of a point that I wanted to talk about with you guys, even though I haven't really articulated it fully. It was just like, where do we take it from here? Because, you know, we've got a lot of growth happening in the sport. Do you guys see it at the rate it's going, needing anything more? Or do you think like, you know, depending on what you want to accomplish in the sport, do you feel like we will, like, where does it go? Like, when does it get the kind of traction maybe it needs to have, just a progression in as a sport to like the next tier of whatever sporting is, you know, and do we want it to go there, or are we just happy to like keep it where it's at? You know, I mean, this is just a very broad question, but yeah, what I don't know what sport we compare to right now, but it's not, you know, where do we compare and where do we want to be, and how do you guys?
Well, wouldn't you say like parkour now is probably where skating was in like the early 80s, late 70s, like just starting to get some limelight and some light shined on it? I feel like that's where parkour is now, and it's like just sticking its head out of that hole to where like people are like, oh yeah, like people come up to me on the streets and I'm like, oh, you're doing parkour, right? Or, oh, you're a free runner. And it's like, oh shit, yeah, man. Like I haven't gotten so much commonplace like that in all of my years training, except for like this year, like 2019, 2020, people come up and they know it instantly.
I think the only thing really to compare it to is skateboarding, you know, because it's kind of literally the same essence and the same essence and the same people, you know, and then you can compare to where skateboarding has gone with the competition scene or people getting sponsored, like deals with brands and whatnot. I think it's very much following in that same footsteps, but it's also, you have to see where your priorities lie and kind of like what you want to do. And that's from person to person, right? Because you have, I guess, a team like us that we're all really interested in is going out, having a good time and showing people what we love to do and what we think is fun.
Yeah.
You know, and if we can build ourselves of a brand off that, that's great, but we still want to very much keep that kind of essence about us. But if you take people who are just driven in like, oh, I want to compete and I want to be the best, you know, like that's their priority and that's where they're going to take it. So I think it has like a couple of points that it could launch off of, just like skateboarding, you know, because it is so broad, because there are so many styles and there are so many different kind of competitions or projects or teams and whatnot.
Parkour teams, yeah. So many different teams. That's what I see. Like, there's going to be like a like have their own thing. They have their own clothing company. Store is their own thing. They have their own clothing brand. Like, it's already like the startings or the inklings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I always talk about this a lot with anybody that, you know, is talking about this type of topic. Like, where is it going, or where should it head, or should we even try to push it somewhere? And comparing it with skateboarding. Skateboarding right now is approaching this place that I would love to see where parkour is when it's at the same level. Whereas realistically, everybody that's doing parkour right now, I mean, you can make the argument that's been being done for years and years on end, but we don't have, especially in this like generation, we don't have any, you know, 80-year-olds, 70-year-olds that did parkour in the scene that we're doing it in now. And I would love to see where this sport really heads. And I feel like skateboarding's heading there because it's been around for a little bit longer and it's been more developed for a little bit longer. But I want to see what the veterans of that sport do when they can no longer do the sport, how they push it without physically being able to do it, but having all the mental figured out and done. I would love to see where parkour heads when we have those athletes that can no longer do it. And that's when I feel like the sport is really going to hit its high point. Because then you have people that want to push the sport for the love of the sport. Their bodies can physically no longer do what they used to, but now they have all the power to really push and give the ideas out that they have. And that's where I'm curious to see where it goes. But I think it'd be great to see.
Yeah. I feel you, man. I think you guys are definitely right. I also think that like skateboarding and parkour are kind of competing for it as like for a share of the market in some ways, you know, and not like,
yeah,
you know, I don't give a shit. Like, I believe in parkour. I love parkour. I know that like it's going to kind of just be what it is until the end of time, because like you guys are saying, like, it's really more about what you guys want to do and having fun. And that's kind of just what all the things that, you know, have a culture. That's what it comes down to, is like, it's people that really love it, that keep it grounded and keep it what it is. And so I'm not really like that worried about it being too commercialized, but I do think about it. It's just fascinating, because I wonder if it ends up replacing things like skateboarding. Does it replace it? Does it add, are they two in the same like tier, or does it completely wash it out and do something different? Because I think that, you know, we're still so young, like you guys are all saying, we don't have the full personality defined yet. But
yeah,
what I'm seeing is, I don't know that you see it in skateboarding. You know, I don't know that we see it as much in skateboarding. I would say that we have a lot of kinship with those guys. And I was a skateboarder before I turned into a parkour athlete. And so I really got a lot of admiration and draw a lot of inspiration from that culture. At the same time, I feel like parkour will differentiate itself somehow in the ways that the culture, and I don't want to like, I don't know what to say. It's just like, I just think that
I feel like the Sens have done that.
It's different. I just think like there's something about it that's a little bit more of a martial art than an extreme.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
I'm not saying that like, you know, I think that skateboarding is a martial art too. It's just like, it's just different. But there's something about, I was talking about with Nick, speaking of yesterday, and it was just like, there's something just super fundamental to like being able to master the human organism, you know, and make it things that you want to do. that is what's like
Well,
gonna
that's the thing.
takes it into like a philosophical realm or like a different realm than skateboarding, which has some utility, but is much more obviously and much more easily taken into a let's just see how far we can take it for the sake of it kind of.
True. Well, there are certain things to compare as well with skateboarding and parkour, because like with skateboarding, right, everyone can do different tricks, right, have their own style, but what's the basis of skateboarding? Your skateboard, right? So not that you're necessarily like limited to that, but that's what everyone kind of draws on. I feel like with parkour, like you said, mastering kind of like the human body, because we just have ourselves and it's us versus the obstacle. It's not us, the board, and the obstacle. We can interpret it and we can make it literally whatever we want it to be, because we have 4 arms, 4 limbs. Like that's what we're using. We're not just making contact with the board. We're making contact with our body. Like the board has like one and one only way of contact, but with your body there are 4, 5, 6 different possibilities of contact. So I think it's the same essence but completely different, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. And I'm even speaking more to like, I guess what I'm thinking about is just man, it's so tough. And I'm totally biased because of where I'm at and like where I want to take it. And like, just like what you were saying, Jake, with, you know, I'm at a stage where obviously like my physical abilities they're not easily advancing. It requires much more effort to push like an extra % than it used to. But regardless of all that, I would say that just BMX and skateboarding and inline and scootering, like they all have a certain personality type. And I'm wondering, you know, scootering feels like it's a younger thing to do than skateboarding. I don't know why, it just feels that way. And BMX feels like it's kind of like the same. There's more tattoos. I don't know why, but there is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, what is the characteristic of like parkour really going to look like? How is it going to be different? Because I do see it's a lot like skateboarding. It's a little bit like some of the snow sports even.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I'm picking up on is like this sense of like mindfulness and discipline. And like, I don't know if it's just because a lot of like the practitioners like Ilabaka that, or Tim Sheaf, or like some of the people that came through in that generation were really philosophical. Like they'd like to talk about, you know, their worldviews and their morals and things like that, and not just the training. Whereas like skateboarding is much more focused on like, what can you do on a skateboard? You know, I feel like parkour athletes are trying at least, or there's something about the parkour athlete that they want to like represent themselves in a way that is, showcasing a perspective and not just movement. I think the movement's always the foundation. That's what the movement is, the skateboard, you know, and skateboarders I'm sure feel the same way. They're expressing themselves a certain way. But what I'm trying to say is, I guess I feel like parkour athletes are genuinely more interested in the ideas of other parkour athletes sometimes than other sports. And maybe it's because,
I agree.
I don't know.
No, it makes sense.
It does seem like a martial art in that sense, where whoever you're training with or whoever you're around, it's like the same way when you spar with someone who's better than you. Like there's things to learn. There's like techniques to pick up on, something that they picked up from someone else, like in another state or another country. And I like that comparison a lot. That like, I like that you said you view parkour as a martial art as well, because that's how I view it. I view it as like, I think like referring to like a UFC fighter is perfecting the craft.
Oh shit, we lost you.
Of the survival circuit.
Can you start over at perfecting the craft?
Come into the discipline of like any type of martial warfare. Like you need to know when to attack, you need to know when to retreat. And I've always viewed parkour as like the art of retreat, or like the discipline, the martial discipline of like pulling back and retreating.
Mm. Yeah, no, sorry, I lost a bit of your audio on a little bit there, but I got the gist of it, which is like, yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, for me, it's like, it's almost like a whole style of combatives that's just still being explored. It's just like how to retreat or advance into battle or away from battle, not just the battle.
Yeah, most definitely. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in. My headphone like cut out, so my audio probably cut out too. I think I heard you guys say that.
Yeah.
Dang.
You're
Just a
good.
bit.
You're good.
Just
You're
a
good.
bit.
We lost a little bit of you, but not too much. Not enough
Cool.
to matter.
As long as you heard my autistic ramblings, like 40% of it, I'm pretty content with that.
Got at least 75%, I think, of the rambling.
That's a fucking good percentage.
That's good. It's high percentages.
That's more than we normally get from Vinny, honestly.
Yep, that's
Truly, yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
Floating around 20.
Yeah, with this idea of like where can the sport go in the future, and it's very interesting to see within even the last year and a half to 2 years what it has done. I would say like it has been the biggest years for parkour in the last maybe 2 years, based on competitions and even just talk, right? Between like all the things with FIG, all the things with, you know, NAPC and what those guys are doing, you know, Art of Motion coming back. It's in such a good place to be talked about, and people are learning what parkour is, and that's the best part. Personally, for me, I always thought, because I grew up, you know, playing like normal sports, playing baseball, soccer, and basketball, but I was always more interested in like X Games, the extreme sports. And I always saw parkour heading in that direction first before anything else, because it was always that underground sport that I thought was going to get picked up, that urban movement. The people have the same personality that you watch back, like what Vinny was saying, with like in the late 80s and 90s, where skateboarding was. And I feel like you see those personalities in parkour athletes now, the brands that are coming out of it, the teams, the sponsors. And I just always thought it would end up going to where X Games is now. And I still have I have like this sneaking suspicion that somehow it will get there before it gets noticed anywhere else. I think that'd be awesome, because I feel like there's no better place really than that for like a parkour competition or parkour in a whole. And through that is where it would get the most recognition I think it would ever receive, really.
I think that's valid as fuck, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like that's like the only place, where he said like it can go, or to be picked up first.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think
It's
like
to the Olympics, ain't it?
It's gonna, well, they're all postponing it right now, huh? But
yeah, true.
That it certainly seems like that's where it's going to end up as well, as in the Olympics, and probably 2020. You know what's crazy is they're going to do Tokyo 2021 now, right? That's what I heard.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that's going to be this year. So Tokyo is going to happen next year. So I wonder if they're going to shift all of them, or if they're going to try to
like shift a year, or just go like 3 years. Oh, that's interesting.
We don't know, but
wow.
So it'll either be showing up in the 2025 or 2024 Olympics probably, as some kind of event. And yeah, who knows? Who knows where it goes from there?
I think corporate comes in at that point. I think once you get into, I'd say once they get into once parkour gets into the Olympics, that's probably when corporate's going to step in a little bit more than we're used to, or a little bit more than we're seeing right now. But I think Nike PK also has the potential to like have some corporate backing and bring like some good money into parkour. Like to the point, money in the sense of like where athletes have the potential to like get paid a sustainable wage.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, I'm living core for a living right now. That's like the dream, ideally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at like skateboarding, for example, there was obviously people, very similar situations, very similar conversations being had about them being adopted into the Olympics, but they had leverage because they had people like Tony Hawk that are big names with big voices that, you know, and with that comes a lot of money because there's a lot of backing behind those people, you know, and they go a little bit hand in hand. And that's what I'm kind of like alluding to, I guess, is just like, where's, you know, it's kind of an uncomfortable thing to even bring up, but it's like, where does parkour land? And not necessarily land, because it's always moving, but we don't know exactly how much of a struggle it'll be to get where we want to go. We just, you know, and I love that, like, we all just get to play a part and just like blaze the trail, even if that's all it is. It's just like, we're going to make the way for others to kind of like know you can take it further. and just like, like the Instagram allowing people to like understand, like Callum did, that you can do a big ass pre at height, it's totally a thing. And you can do it safely and do it well. But yeah, like I see like there's also a shift in what the world is interested in, and what the, what has to go and what has to change in order to bring like new concepts in. And like, I don't know. I just think that like there's death that comes along with that. Like certain sports are going to have to like be like Olympics are going to have to drop certain things to really adopt and do parkour justice. It can't be stifled, and it can't be like a, whatever. It's not going to be the badminton event. It's not going to be, we're too passionate about it for it to be like a kind of a pastime, I think. And I don't know, badminton players, maybe they'd be fucking livid right now. But
that's the whole controversy, like that's what's kind of been going on with people trying to like fight FIG and whatnot, because I don't really know much about it. I know bits here and there, but a lot of people say that they're trying to like make it into like something completely different of parkour.
Well, not just completely different, but it can like pigeonhole us into a certain status of like how relevant is it, and like that's a really big question. It's like, how much value do we provide? I think there's an interesting, like, not everything is necessarily equal, but I do think the reason why fighters, for example, why I'm so inspired by fighters is because they bring that philosophical perspective. The greatest of the greats in boxing, they have learned something so much more fundamental about existence, I think, than the greatest of the greats in badminton, for example. There's just there's a little bit of a sliding scale. Like, you don't know the world's greatest badminton players, but the greatest boxers and the greatest UFC heavyweights or fighters, often like their legacies live on for decades. The Mike Tysons, the Muhammad Alis, and these people. And I wonder where parkour, what kind of influence, not in like a greedy or like a, we should all like make parkour more important than it is, or any of that bullshit. I'm just saying, like, I really genuinely wonder like what parkour athletes, like how much they can offer the world. And I think it's a lot. Like, I genuinely think it's a lot, because it's such a human thing to be thinking about and doing. But that's what I'm like thinking about the most when I'm bringing all these questions up.
Interesting.
Do you guys feel me? Do you guys understand what
I don't. Yeah, definitely.
I'm rambling. I feel like I've been talking too much.
I'm on that autistic rant right now. You know what I'm saying?
No, that was very well said. I definitely think when thinking about like where parkour will be and the personalities that surround parkour as a whole, I mean, I met so many people at this point that we've had talks in depth like this about the sport in a whole. And for me, I feel like something like the Olympics is not the place for it right now. Because like you said, with skateboarding, they had the minds like Tony Hawk who put in the work. I don't know if he's backing it too much. I know the Street League people are backing the Olympic skateboarding a lot. But they've seen it all.
Intervened at least, or like some other Tony Hawk and some other well-known skaters, they had the leverage to intervene and like make sure it was done properly. That's all.
Exactly. And I think parkour still needs to evolve just a little bit more before it could be there. Right now, I believe people are just seeing it as a cash grab to put it into the Olympics because it's a hot new thing that people are going to watch, but it's not there just yet. The sad truth is that it's going to be there whether we want it or not, because they've done all the stuff. They're able to move it in such a way that they're the ones running it. But it's also why I feel so strongly with like NAPC and even what like Red Bull's doing. They're defining the sport in competitions of their own. And to me, something like NAPC is going to hold a much more prestigious place than who gets the gold medal for style in the Olympics for parkour. Because it's like you said, for the people in the Olympics, they're not going to know.
Amongst our community.
Yeah, but I definitely think that. But like you said, like you can't name the best badminton player, but you could probably name a Hall of Famer somewhere in the MLB. right? I think it's going to be like people are going to be able to name the gold medalist in parkour, but we know who placed first in the skill comp back in 2017 at APC. So for us as a community, I think it holds more of a value that we bring it up to get to that point before any other company does it first for us.
It's my doggy in the background.
The dog feels you. The dog's like, fuck yeah.
He's like, I got to get up.
He's a rowdy Dalmatian.
Oh, really? A Dalmatian. It was a beautiful pooch. That's a nice.
He's a good looking Charlie Brown. He's a good looking boy.
Anyone have anything they like want to bring to the table that we haven't covered at all, or just something that's been on your mind? I know I've been taking up some of the mic more time than I probably should, and
nah, dude.
I'm just, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts that have been drifting behind the scenes here, because we all have to be like so polite waiting for.
I know. I could rattle off for ages, so I'm just trying to keep down.
Depends on what you want to know.
Yeah. What piqued your curiosity there, friendo?
Again, for me, I'm really concerned. I don't know, man. I just like these ideas. I like to know how you guys are thinking about it. You obviously have the Bruce Lee T-shirt on. That you draw inspiration from him as well. And I'm wondering if we can all come up with a concise viewpoint of where. Ooh, maybe not. I'm not even going to ask you to be concise, but I would say what is a fundamental belief that you have about parkour or about your life? Forget parkour, just about, I think it's the same thing ultimately. So that you guys try to live by.
Okay.
I believe I was destined to meet these guys. Everything, as cliche as that sounds, I believe it is my destiny to do parkour, to the very end, until either my body gives out on me or until I take my last breath. This feels right. This feels where I am supposed to be.
Bang, bang.
Something that I'm very, very big on, and this was with training, life, and just in general, kind of all mixed together. And actually, I talked about it in my last Instagram post that I had just posted a couple days ago. Just the basis of the fact that no matter what happens in your life, whether it be good, bad, or here the next thing, you never give up. You always get up, you always fucking try, you always work, and when you work hard. And as long as you are following what you love completely, and you know that you love it through and through, that will take you farther than anything else. And that's what I very much believe, because I've been through things in my life that, honestly, sometimes I shouldn't even get out of bed, because anyone has those thoughts with stuff and that, and then things happening in their life. But if I believe in something and I'm very strong about it and I love it through and through, I know more than anything else that if I commit myself to that, it will help me with anything in my life. It will push me forward in every single situation. So, and just staying positive is a very, very, very big.
Powerful, man. I mean, that was really cool the way you said that. I feel you big time on that one. I really appreciate that. I was wondering if you are willing, if you would share a little bit on how you arrived at that and some of the struggles that you've had. It's up to you.
Sure. So not a lot of people know, and I'm not super, not that I don't talk about it a lot, but I'm a very open person. If you ask me questions, I talk, but, so the way that I literally got into parkour and then things happened in my life was, like I said, in the beginning in Staten Island, it was my brother Anthony and Nick that were kind of very much, very, very driven and wanting to do this. And then unfortunately what happened was when I was 13 years old, my brother got into a car accident and ended up not surviving from everything that happened. And then from there, I developed anxiety and depression, and was going through a lot of years, dealing with a lot, going to therapy, trying to regain control of myself, because I've since 14, 15 years old, I suffer from very severe panic attacks, and that goes hand in hand with the anxiety. So there was a point in my life where the anxiety attack would just take over and I would lose feeling in my legs and just go down and black out. And it got so bad to the point where that would literally happen probably 4 times a day. so it was very, very tough, kind of like dealing with like teenage years and kind of pushing through it and kind of figuring out like what's going on with me, like what I am. And I was in a very, very weird place for a while. Like my parents had kind of gotten divorced, like fighting here and there, fighting over custody and whatnot. But then through parkour, through like learning and literally meeting all these fucking dudes that I had no idea were on the same island as me, like together, kind of like having that feeling and knowing that they're there for me no matter what, and they're there to push me and make sure that I stay on top of my shit. That has literally driven me to the point where my own belief now is no matter what, you don't give up. There is no negativity. There is only positivity. And no matter what, again, like if you work for it, it's going to come, you know, and that's something that I've had to realize through like therapy and friendships and these guys that really like pounded into my head. Like, no, you don't, like, no matter what, like you get up, you try it again, try it differently, do something else. Just there's always a way around everything. And that took me a very, very long time to realize and understand. Yeah.
Well said, my man. And I appreciate you saying it. I mean, the 24 to realize that is actually, I wouldn't say the longest time, you know, you know, a lot of people takes them the whole life or they never figure it out. But, you know, I really appreciate you sharing that kind of story because it's one of the things that I think, like you just said, it just needs to be drilled in over and over again. And so many people, even if they know it, it's so helpful to hear something.
Yeah. And that's a big thing too. Like with me, my Instagram or whatever I put out, I try very much so to have everything that I put out into the world be positive, because I know through my own experience, through dealing with certain situations and whatnot, and all the anxiety that I've dealt with in my life, that like, again, like you can't be negative. So if you can create like a positive image for someone, and anyone, it could be one person that looks at that fucking post or whatever, caption, whatever, something that they can really connect to. And if one person actually follows through on it and it gives them that kind of hope, that brings me like the best joy ever. So through my whatever, like social media or posts or whatever, I very much try to stay positive. You can do it, find inspiration from anything and use it to drive you forward positively. That's basically it.
Word up to that.
Thank you.
Who do we like, Laine or Jake? Do you want to share as well on like your kind of a fundamental belief that carries you through life right now?
Well, I was gonna say, actually, going based on what he just said, like, yeah, I guess it gets me through life or anything. I would say it's like any sport. I feel like you can get it out of any sport. You get that, like how Joe said, you get that like dedication. You get that little something that like pushes you to deal with like everyday anxieties or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So I would say pretty much, yeah. I believe that you should do something with yourself, no matter what it is, something that makes you happy, and show yourself that you can push yourself. You can become something more, you know? So.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are making it hard to follow up on this one.
Joe,
I couldn't follow up after
I'm going from.
I mean, it wasn't really
going.
Sorry, dude. Joe. You just got.
You good?
You're gonna drop if you're gonna drop like the truth bombs on us like that. If you're gonna inspire everybody, just go last.
I'll try.
I'm sorry. It's a trauma, bro. I can't.
For me, I never really stuck with any sports that I've done when I was a kid. I kind of played it, whether it was that I wanted to do it or my parents wanted me to do it. I kind of played it, did it, got the joy out of it. Was always very athletic throughout like my childhood, but I would always just kind of leave and not look back. I didn't want to do it anymore. A big thing about me is that the one thing that I hate doing is wasting time. So at this point in my life, parkour I've put so much time into trying to perfect my craft and work on what I'm able to do and the skills and meet all these wonderful human beings that I have the honor of being on a team with. And I've put so much time into it that mentally it would physically piss me off if I just called it quits, because that would be the biggest waste of time that I've ever done then.
I feel that.
I would not be able to, like, I can't actually think about what it would be like if I just called it quits and stopped. Because now at this point, I not only feel like I owe it to myself to continue through with this because I would hate myself if I, just quit, but I feel like I owe it to anybody that I've met throughout the sport or anybody who has taught me something. Because now if I call it quits, not only did I waste my time, I waste everybody's time that has taught me something, anybody's time who's put something out, content that I've watched. Because now I watched it, I learned from them, and then I left. So for me, it's a big mental thing for me as well, where I don't want to leave because of all the time that I put into it and the immense amount of love that I have for the sport in a whole. And it's pretty much, the only sport that I've stuck with for more than a couple months. I'm going on 10 years now. And to think 10 years ago at 14, I was just kind of learning what parkour is. And now seeing where it's come, it's amazing to watch because like we've talked about before, we are kind of at like that forefront of seeing where parkour is actually going to head. We're no longer just kids that are going on YouTube and typing parkour 101 because that's what I fucking did when I first learned about it.
No, that's what I did too.
Yeah,
Really?
but
Parkour 101.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing where it's going, and to me, that's given me like the biggest joy out of sticking with this and not wasting my time or wasting others' time, like with learning this. And I just can't wait to see where it goes.
Well said, my man.
That's good. You stepped up, bro.
I think the only thing I would say is that there's no way it's going to be a waste of time. Like none of this time is wasted, I don't think. But that not because, sometimes I think you could take on a different journey and it's still like never, I could tell by your mindset, you're never wasting time. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to be wasting time no matter what happens.
That's what you think. We play a lot of video games sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Smash Bros are,
Smash.
All right. Let's go. I think we can probably wrap on that because I don't want to keep you guys all night. I know it's fucking whatever, almost 10 p.m. there.
I fucking missed my question, bro. Fuck, again.
Wait, what was the question?
What do you think happens after you die, Brandon?
No, not again. God damn it, Vinny.
It's not your podcast anymore. It's Brandon's podcast. So he can choose to fucking answer it if he wants to.
Wait, is this like a question you ask a lot of people or something?
Oh, we had on that podcast.
I ask everyone I meet what their personal belief is, like after the lights go out. I tried asking my friends down below. They still haven't told me. Tried to ask them on our
That's
podcast.
Real shit. Like, I like that you're going to the deep question right there because
I want to know.
I probably need to think about this more often because I don't think about it that much. What's going to happen when I die or what happens when anyone dies? I think that's like, who the fuck knows, man? I really don't know. And I think you should kind of act as if you don't get any other opportunities, but I think that there probably is something that even if my own consciousness doesn't like go on or whatever, I'm not me anymore. I feel like that life goes on, and whatever. I think like my role in it, I don't know. It doesn't need to be anything more than what it is on this life. So I'm going to try to make it what it can be. That's my
most definitely.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, live in the moment.
All think,
more
right?
or less.
That's a deep ass question. Let's all.
Hey.
I'm going to throw it back at you.
Oh God.
What do you think happens after you die?
Wait. I don't want to answer it first. I have my answer. I want to hear what these niggas got to say down below because no one's ever told me what they believe.
Wait. Okay, so you're not going first. Who else is going to go?
I don't got much to say. I just hope it's less stressful, honestly.
He's not, bro. He's not wrong.
Relief. Yeah.
Not.
No, I agree with you, Brendan. Like, once I'm gone, it's life at that point. Everything kind of like comes full circle. It's all energy. Like I give back to what made me.
Word up.
Yeah. I definitely feel. Yeah, I feel very strongly with that. Like no matter what happens, you got to realize life's going to move on with or without you. And coming to terms with that is like super important. So I always felt like, whatever you're going to do in this life, you better make it worth it, that it is either talked about, it is thought about, or something that you've done is acted upon by somebody else, because then you continue to live on that way. But as long as you make it worth it, then I mean, I personally, I don't care what happens afterwards. As long as you made this moment worth it, then, you know, you're good.
Yeah. I like to think in extremes, and I think both extremes teach you the same lesson here, which is like, you should live your life as if you do this infinite amounts of time, and or this is the only time. You know what I mean? It's like some people believe in like cyclical time, where it's just like it's not actually just one time. You're doing it infinite amounts of times. So, and I think that's the same. It's kind of the same rule. It's like you should behave as if like this is, you know, whatever action you're taking, whatever words you're speaking. That could be a lot of pressure. Maybe that's a little too much, but but you want to behave in a way that it's like, all right, you're boosting yourself forward, and you're boosting the whole of life, of the universe, or whatever you know, think, however you think we're connected, if you do, into whatever you think is valuable. But yeah, that's a deep question. All right, last but not least.
Oh wow! Now the limelight's on me. No, you guys definitely said some of the stuff I want to say, but like, I personally, I don't think the lights go out. I think I'm more fond of the idea of reincarnation, or even like I've been in this life before. The amount of times I've been in my position where I'm in right now, talking to you guys. But I think being a human being must be like one of the more simplistic forms of life, like along like the evolutionary scale of things. And I think at the end of evolution, everyone is becomes one, and everyone's God. And like, I've always liked that saying, like, see God in everyone. I'm not a particularly religious person, but I love that saying, because I think at the end of the day, like, we are all going down the same path. And at some point we're going to reach our final evolutionary stage. But right now we're like a human being. We think we're complex, but I think on the grand scheme of things of what we're going to become through like numerous incarnations, like, we're fucking bacteria right now. And like,
I don't know if you know, Vinny, that's called the egg theory.
Is that egg theory the one that you and Miguel are always talking about? Yeah, that's what I think. I'm keen on that one. I like egg theory a lot.
Yeah, I've heard of some of these egg theory as well, and I like
my own personal belief.
Pretty interesting. Yeah, I'm very fascinated with like what human beings will evolve into. You know, like what it actually looks like.
Yeah,
because all of our DNA is so unexpressed still, and just like what generations and generations and like, you know, millennia from now, what a human being will actually look like, or even the word human will mean.
Or what, let alone what technology is going to unlock for us, or how it's going to affect like
yeah. Oh, baby. That's juicy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I'm ready.
Can't get any deeper than that.
All right.
Yeah.
We just got as deep as we can get. So let's go ahead and call that. You guys are amazing. Obviously, if there's anything you want to say to wrap it up, or if there's anywhere that you want to point the audience, I really appreciate every one of you for coming on, and hopefully we can do more of these.
Absolutely. Real quick, do you just want to wrap it up with all the Ampisound stuff that we've been doing?
Yeah. Let's go for it. Let's do it.
All right. So basically, so we've been working with Ampisound for a couple months now, and kind of how that got started was especially with the New York POV, the rooftop POV that we did. And he had hit up a couple people in New York asking if like people were interested in like who would be willing to kind of do something like this. And again, how we talked like that, we were the only like, not that we're the only real, but like we were like the only group that like had the consistency enough, and like I guess like the correct teamwork in order to really get it done under like the circumstances, because New York is like a very, very, like I said before, very hard city to find roof jumps in. So we spent about, what was it, 2 months filming, right guys?
Roughly.
2 months.
Shout out Miguel and Miles for putting the good word for Ampisound for us too.
Yes. They very much helped us kind of get affiliated with Ampisound. So we spent about 2 months filming. We went out every single Sunday to get this done, and we had a meeting literally like the first day before we went out to shoot. We all had a meeting. We all got together, a very, very serious meeting, when we were like, okay, listen, we know that it's very, very hard to do this in New York. We know that once we get on roofs, and because it is New York City, they might treat it like a terrorist offense. That was something that was very much kind of going through our heads when we were doing this. And we told each other, like, every single step has to be thought out. Every single way up has to be together. You know what I mean? We have to completely be in each other's heads the entire time, know what we're doing. And while we were talking, the stuff that we found up there, we kind of capped it off to, if you think that you can do this within 5 to 8 seconds of like rationalizing in your head, yes, you are going to do it completely full faith. If you take any longer with that, you are not attempting this line, because we do not have the time frame to do this. I think the most amount of time that we spent on roofs in New York was an hour, right? And then we had to hop down and go to.
Yeah,
it was a long
that was
hour.
a long hour.
We had people coming out with machetes. We had people coming out with baseball bats. Yeah, New Yorkers are very, very scary. Like, like completely.
Dude, missioning in New York is like one of the sketchiest things you could do. One, the architecture crumbles beneath your feet. Crumbles everywhere.
There were so many fire escapes that were breaking underneath us as we were climbing up. It was literally insane.
Did you guys explain more of this in that video you put out?
Yeah, so we made
like, it must be insane, yeah, because it's just, I mean, I didn't really think about this. I'm gonna watch that video for sure, but yeah, dude, New York is so much different. It's like big game hunting or some shit. It's like
it's a New York minute for sure. Everything's so high anxiety and high rushed, and like rooftop training's no different. If anything, it's hyper rushed because you're like, I got to get the fuck down from here before NYPD comes up and tases me.
Exactly. And we had a couple of instances where we heard cops were going around. We actually got a tip from one of the New Yorkers in the community that sent us a message that saw us on roofs and was like, hey, listen, there's a bunch of people on the ground on their phones right now calling the cops on you guys. You guys need to get down. So once we got, we were literally in the middle of filming. We had to stop everything that we were doing, pack up and rush down. And we didn't even get to go back to that roof.
Oh my God, dude. That must have done some serious elevating of your training though. Being
very quickly.
Oh yeah.
Very quickly.
Just like no, yes. That's like that. I mean, I love how that necessity can be the mother of invention or whatever they say, but just like, I'm sure that was really valuable, just challenging yourself that way. I love
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was interesting to see the architecture of the roofs on New York, because I don't think that is something that anyone has ever really tried to explore.
Oh, it's like crazy.
And not that we found like the biggest stuff, but for what we did find, everything was very scary, literally because of the architecture. We didn't know if something was going to break. We didn't know if something was shaky. We tested everything to the best of our ability, but again, there's like that risk factor of like, you don't know. So once
you guys wouldn't fucking test, and I'd be like, did you check that? And you'd be like, oh, I didn't. And I'm fucking sitting there kicking.
Yeah. Well, there was actually very interesting. Towards the end of our filming, we were kind of rushed just a little bit because we started very late in the summer. So it was like going into just getting wetter outside and the daylight savings, it was getting darker quicker. So me, Laine, and Vinny, and actually David came out with us one time, flew in from Boston to kind of like help us with it. So we all made the decision today it's going to drizzle a little bit. We're still going to go out and we're still going to try to find footage. And just like what Vinny said, like testing everything to the best of your ability, but sometimes you don't know. And actually I ended up slipping on a rail and hitting headfirst into one of the walls that we were trying to jump and dive tap. And I was literally like this close, like from a nail going right into my head. And it was weird, a little shaky, but we dusted each other off. Like we reinforced that, like we got this, we can do this. And,
Joe, you were this close.
24-year-old I'm talking about.
You're a fucking
31-year-old me now knows where the nails are before I go.
No, I feel that.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I was saying with that. I'm like, fuck, dude. But you gotta live through it, dude. I fucking knocked myself out twice when I was younger, so I can't do shit.
Hey, listen, next take, we fucking got it. Right on. And then we rushed down. It was good. It was very interesting adventure in New York. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, you definitely, anyone I'll put that in the description of the podcast, because that video I want to watch, and I think it's so interesting that you guys are exploring that, because it is like, it's New York, dude. It's one of the most important cities in the world.
Potential. There's so much untapped.
Yeah, there's a lot, and there's a lot of roofs that we got on that we had to come down very, very quickly because the tenants were annoyed, and literally those spots were these spots. Like there was just so much. Yeah. But there was very little that we really had access to because of the time frame, the pressure, and just the stress of it all. So for what got done, and I think the video very much speaks for itself. I think we did a really good job. And back to the beginning of what we were saying, like representing New York, like I think in that video, that's exactly what we did. We showed the culture, we showed the architecture, the environment, like us as a collective group. Like I think it went really well.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then from here going forward, what we would like to do, every city or state or wherever that we travel to, try to make a POV. One, to encapsulate where we travel to. Two, continue working with Ampisound as much as we can, and then just going forward with that. So
I love that. I love it. It's kind of like you just do a little expose almost, like show each episode is like this is this city, this is that city, this is it's like an Anthony Bourdain of parkour spots.
Yeah. And it gives our like own style to it too, because it's us training, like it's us getting the footage, it's our perspective. GoPro is literally here in your mouth, like you're your person. So I think we very much like bring our style to it.
Yeah, you guys did a really amazing job with that and the Houston, or not, I don't know if it was just Houston, but the Texas video.
Yeah, it was just Houston.
Yeah, you guys pushed it both out.
Unfortunately, we didn't get to go to Austin. We planned for it, but the weather wasn't really on our side. So we
next time we got you.
Yeah, you guys got to come to Denver and do an episode for sure again.
Yeah, that would be cool. Actually, that's what me and Laine did a little bit with our descent project. It was mainly GoPro footage and us just kind of doing descents and whatnot and cat drops. So it was cool. But it would be really cool to come back and shoot like a whole video with the entire team. That would be so sick.
That'd be epic.
Even get maybe some people that live there, like you or some actually AJ.
Get Nick to come out and then feature Max as well. And it'll be a whole New York reunion in Denver.
That'd be I miss Max.
That'd be so sick.
That's it. That's the project.
That is the project. So.
All right. Everyone needs to be following. If you guys are listening to this shit, you need to be following them. And I mean, any last words? You guys are absolutely crushing it. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to hear us out, man. It's fucking awesome to be on your show and talk to you like this.
Yeah,
it was like meeting you virtually, Brandon.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. That was them. The boys from New York, Staten Island even, some of them. And, of course, good friends of Nick Ortiz, another friend of the podcast. Much love to the East Coast. But if you guys forget, then I'm here to remind you. Get in that motherfucking description right now before I lose my temper. And give us a 5-star review. Give us a subscribe. Tell your friends. And let's do this. Let's make this bigger. Let's spread it around. Appreciate you guys being here and being part of this one, of course. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.